Semaglutide, Tirzepatide, and now Retatrutide. Three medications that have completely changed the conversation around obesity and weight loss. But which one works best? What does the research actually show? What happens when you stay on these drugs long-term or stop taking them? And maybe most importantly, why could buying a gray market version online be a serious gamble with your health? Let's break down what we actually know. Before we get started, the new Ageless Performance Project website is up and running. Visit agelessperformanceproject.com, try our free nutrition and macro calculator, explore our educational resources, download the free weight loss blueprint, and sign up for our monthly newsletter for new videos, articles, research updates, and announcements. In addition, Ageless Performance Project is adding access to medically supervised services focused on prescription weight management, healthy aging, hormone optimization, peptide therapy, and sexual health, with all compounded prescription medications sourced from 503A and 503B outsourcing facilities. First off, these three drugs are not the same. Semaglutide, best known for medications like Wegovy and Ozempic, primarily activates the GLP-1 receptor. GLP-1 can decrease appetite, increase feelings of fullness, slow gastric emptying, and improve glucose regulation. Then we have Tirzepatide, marketed as Zepbound and Mounjaro. It activates two receptors, the GLP-1 and GIP receptors. And then there's Retatrutide. It is a triple-receptor agonist targeting GLP-1, GIP, and the glucagon receptor. That glucagon component may increase energy expenditure and fat metabolism, which could partially explain some of the extraordinary weight loss results we're seeing. So which one produces the most weight loss? Clinical trials suggest a fairly clear progression. Semaglutide 2.4 milligrams has produced average weight reductions of roughly 15% in major obesity trials. Tirzepatide raised the bar, with higher doses producing average reductions of approximately 20% or more in some trials. And now Retatrutide may be pushing that even further. In Lilly's Phase 3 Triumph-4 trial, participants receiving 12 milligrams of Retatrutide lost an average of approximately 28.7% of their body weight at 68 weeks. That's extraordinary. But there's an important caveat. Retatrutide remains investigational and is not currently FDA approved. So, while the results are extremely promising, we don't have the same amount of long-term clinical experience with Retatrutide that we have with Semaglutide. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get enough attention. What happens when you stop? One of the most important findings from these trials is that obesity frequently behaves like a chronic disease requiring long-term management. In the extension of the Step 1 trial, participants who stopped Semaglutide regained approximately 2/3 of the weight they had lost within the following year. Many of their cardiometabolic improvements also began moving back toward baseline. We see something similar with Tirzepatide. In the Ceramide-4 trial, participants initially lost about 21% of their body weight. Those who continued Tirzepatide lost additional weight, but those switched to placebo experienced substantial weight regain. So, these medications shouldn't necessarily be viewed as something you simply take for 3 months, lose 30 pounds, and then discontinue with the expectation that nothing changes. For some patients, obesity pharmacotherapy may become long-term therapy, just like medications used to manage other chronic conditions. But what about the long-term risks? This is where we need to separate what we know from what we don't know. The most common adverse effects with Semaglutide and Tirzepatide are gastrointestinal, issues like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, constipation, and abdominal discomfort. There are also clinically important warnings and risks involving conditions such as gallbladder disease, pancreatitis, dehydration-related kidney problems, and severe gastrointestinal reactions. And these drugs aren't appropriate for everybody. That's one reason medical screening and ongoing medical supervision is so important. And with Tirzepatide, we simply don't have decades of long-term human data. That's not the same thing as saying it's unsafe. It means we don't know everything yet. There's another issue I think is extremely important: muscle. When someone loses a significant amount of body weight, they're generally not losing body fat exclusively. Some of that weight can come from lean tissue. If someone simply takes one of these medications, dramatically reduces calories, doesn't consume enough protein, and doesn't resistance train, they may end up lighter, but not necessarily metabolically or physically healthier in every respect. That's especially important as we age. The goal shouldn't simply be, how much weight can I lose? The better question is, how much body fat can I lose while preserving as much muscle and physical performance as possible? That means maintaining adequate amounts of protein, maintaining appropriate caloric intake, resistance training with progressive overload, recovery, and monitoring body composition when appropriate. And now let's talk about the gray market. This is where I become especially concerned. If you're buying Semaglutide, Tirzepatide, or particularly something being sold as Retatrutide from an unverified website or a company labeling it research use only, you may not actually know what's in that vial. A label doesn't prove identity. It doesn't prove concentration, and it doesn't prove sterility. The product could potentially contain the wrong concentration, contaminants, impurities, or something different from what's stated on the label. And remember, Retatrutide is not FDA approved. So if somebody is selling you it directly online for you to inject yourself, you're not receiving an FDA approved medication. There's also an important distinction between appropriately prescribed medication obtained through legitimate pharmacy channels and an online peptide marketed for laboratory research. Those aren't interchangeable. This is why medical supervision is so important. These are powerful metabolic drugs. Medical supervision isn't simply about getting a prescription. It's about determining whether you're an appropriate candidate in the first place. It's reviewing your medical history and medications. It's choosing an appropriate medication and dose. It's monitoring side effects and your response to treatment. And when clinically appropriate, it's about monitoring things like glucose control, kidney function, nutritional status, and other relevant health markers. Just as importantly, a comprehensive program should address nutrition, protein intake, resistance training, sleep, activity, and long-term weight maintenance, because medication can be an incredibly powerful tool. But medication shouldn't replace the fundamentals. At Ageless Performance Project, that's exactly the philosophy we're building around. The objective isn't simply about moving the scale. It's about helping people improve body composition, metabolic health, muscle preservation, longevity, and performance through evidence-based nutrition, exercise, lifestyle strategies, and when appropriate, providing access to medically supervised treatment. If you're enjoying this peptide series, like my video, share it with someone who might benefit from it, and follow me for more evidence-based content. And remember, performance has no expiration date.